my name's Erica Denine. I'm a public health inspector with Alberta Health Services, and my area consists essentially of St. Paul County. If you're not up in my area, we do have a list of inspectors for all over the province, so if you want to reach out to me with questions directly from my area, I'm happy to help you. If not, you can still reach out to me and I can connect you with your local inspector as well. So for farm days, what you need to know when it comes to food handling and food safety for farm days, we'll go over if you need a food handling permit, some basics for food safety, if you're not going to be going with a caterer, and some things that you should be going over with your caterer anyways. Just make sure that everyone's safe and protected. Hand washing, as we've heard in the news constantly now, hand washing, hand washing, hand washing. It is super, super important. We do have restrictions and requirements when it comes to hand washing in public spaces, so I'll go over those as well. Go over some of our frequently asked questions that we get when it comes to doing a lot of these more boutique type of food handling experiences, as well as my contact information. So when is a food handling permit required? Essentially in Alberta, if you are serving food to the public or you're selling food, whether it be as simple as prepackaged chips and candy bars at a gas station to a full-blown restaurant to these farm days, you would need a public food handling permit. The exception would be for private events, so weddings, private parties, those types of things, you don't need one. Office potlucks are also one you don't need one for. I do get that question a lot, surprisingly. So when it's a closed group by invitation only, essentially, that is when you do not need a food handling permit. We also have some requirements around approved community events, so they don't need the traditional food handling permit that we would be issuing to restaurants or that type of thing. So an approved community events are events that are run by a nonprofit community group for fundraising purposes that are open to the general public. Volunteers are providing food preparation and service. So an example of a community event is Rodeo Week here in St. Paul. There's a lot of fundraising going on for 4-H, for different groups. Having a community barbecue, come one, come all, help us support our 4-H. That's something that we would consider a community event, and it still needs approval from a public health inspector. Another one is special events, and those also again have to be approved by environmental public health. And this is most likely what you guys are going to be working under. It is an event that is open to the general public. It is advertised, whether it's ticketed or not. It's still something that's open to the general public. And it's something that you have to pre-register with us, and you do have to receive approval. And sometimes that can involve an inspection as well. One thing I should probably clarify before we get too much deeper into this is that I work under a whole bunch of different titles. So our overall program is environmental public health. I work as a public health inspector is my job title. I answer the phone as environmental health. We're known as executive officers, environmental health officers. We have a whole bunch of different names. So if I start confusing people, I'm really sorry. It's just we have a whole bunch of names right now, and anyone who's paying attention to the news, we get called different things in there as well. So for special events, this is sort of what you guys will be working under. As the event organizer, please, please, please submit your event notification form at least 30 days prior to the event. The sooner we get your forms, the sooner we can do a review. And as individual farms, you will be your own event organizer. So you're the organizer as well as the vendor at the same time, unless you are pulling in extra people. So if you are going to have a caterer that's coming in, and then you're going to have someone who is doing some other type of food service on site with you as well, they would be considered the vendors. Each area, each farm is going to be its own organizer. So the sooner you give us these forms, the sooner we can go through them. If you want to give us a call and talk through it before you even submit the forms to make sure that you're on track before you submit them, that's totally okay as well. I have an open phone policy, essentially. Give me a call anytime about anything, and I will do my best I can to get you on the right track. So the sooner you can fill out those forms, the sooner we can go over them and make sure you're doing things right the first time, instead of getting like, a week before the event and then we find out that you're missing like 5 or 6 critical things. So Our forms can be found online, ahs.ca/EPH. You click Planning and Events on the right-hand side, and the information packets detail exactly what we're going to be asking about. So they are on the longer side, but they are really useful in helping you think through everything for your event, from receiving items to hiring the caterer to preparing food to serving food to cleaning up to garbage to bathrooms, seating arrangements, all those types of things. It really does make you think from start to finish what you need to do to have safe food handling at your event. If you're not in my area, you can always contact your local office as well. Most inspectors are quite happy to work through things versus finding problems later on. And this is sort of what our website looks like right now. You can see down in the bottom right-hand side, I've circled the planning the events section. And this is pretty much what it comes up as. So there's the organizer section as well as the food vendor section. So we do need to be notified whenever something is happening. We want to make sure that you're doing it safely. It's not too necessarily meddle or make things harder for you. We really just want there to be a food handling happening at any event that's going on. So some reason why food safety is important, and I go over this with every presentation I have with the public, and some of these stats might be a little bit out of date. They're actually probably a lot higher. 1 in 8 people, which is approximately 4 million Canadians, will get sick with contaminated food each year, which is pretty much the population of Alberta. We're close to 4 million people. Over 11,000 hospitalizations and 240 deaths occur each year due to food-related illness. So that can be anything from foodborne illness like an infection to cross-contamination with chemicals, those types of things. And the most common foodborne illnesses that we see are Salmonella, E. coli, and Campylobacter, and they're mostly caused by poor hand hygiene practices, which is why we're always talking about hand washing. It occurs a lot from temperature abuse, cross-contamination, and allowing sick people to prepare and serve food. So preventing foodborne illness, so these are things that you really want to make sure that are happening. So making sure that you're washing your hands thoroughly and frequently with hot soapy water and drying with a paper towel. Especially after using the washroom and before handling any food. So if you are doing some type of food service and it's not a caterer who's cooking for you or who's doing demos for you, if this is something that you're manning the barbecue, you need to be frequently washing your hands to prevent cross-contamination from happening. Avoid habits that will contaminate food or your preparation areas, like licking your fingers, biting fingernails, smoking, or wearing your aprons outside of the food handling area. So if you're on grill duty, keep yourself at the grill. Don't be wandering over to help out with the animals or to help take cash or anything like that without changing your apron and washing your hands. So prepare food only if you're feeling well. Do not prepare food if you have vomiting or diarrhea. So those are very commonly transmitted through food. I understand that you guys are going to be putting a lot of planning and a lot of time into this event, and there's going to be a big financial commitment to it as well. And if you wake up feeling sick the day of your event, it is safer for you to cancel your food handling plan than for you to be handling food when you're feeling, oh, I might be okay. No, don't risk it. Just scrap your food handling plans for that day. And when you guys are doing your planning for this, have a backup plan in case somebody is sick the day of preparation, or you have to go to plan B and run plan B past us as well, and we'll let you know if that's something that's safe to do. And while it seems pretty basic here, keeping raw meat away from ready-to-eat foods like lettuce, fruits, and bread, nothing that's going to have a secondary cook step to it, and just keeping it away from anything that could potentially drip on. And don't place cooked food on the same plate or cutting board that held raw food as well. From doing routine restaurant inspections, this is something that comes up frequently, and it's something we want to nip in the bud before it would turn into an illness. And some of this might seem like very basic food safety knowledge, but it's still always a good idea to go through it and review it because everybody does have different habits at home. If you're going to be serving anything that's raw, like fresh fruits or vegetables, make sure that they are thoroughly washed, especially if they are your own. You don't want your customers to be eating part of the field as well. Cutting boards need to be washed and sanitized. Same with any of your other preparation surfaces to prevent cross-contamination. Simply mixing half a teaspoon of household bleach to 1 liter of water will be strong enough. And that's your basic bare bones cheap bleach. So no fiber guard, no scents, no splashless, just the real cheap stuff that you can get at the store. Make sure your food is cooked thoroughly. Do not pre-cook food and plan to finish it later. Not thoroughly cooking your food in one step can lead to any pathogens or foodborne illness organisms that are in that food to keep growing because they weren't killed off. And then you might not be completely cooking it later on, and that could lead to somebody getting sick. Wash your hands and change gloves between tasks if you are using gloves. Gloves are not magic. They don't not pick up germs. They don't not pick up dirt. So whenever you change tasks, you have to take off your gloves, wash your hands, put on a new set of gloves, change your task again, take off your gloves, wash your hands, repeat. We do recommend using gloves when you are handling foods that are ready to eat, as long as you're staying on that station. So if you are the person who is finishing up sandwiches or handing them out, it is recommended that you wear the gloves as long as you stay on that one task and you don't deviate. If you are doing any pre-prep or anything like that, don't reheat your foods more than once. So, and that's to prevent contamination and growth of foodborne illness organisms. And uninspected meat and unpasteurized dairy is never allowed. So if there's any meat producer, egg producer, dairy producers who are here, you can serve your products provided they have been inspected or pasteurized as necessary. So if you are going to be serving beef, your animal does need to be slaughtered and processed in an approved abattoir, and then it can come back to your farm or to your caterer, and then they can prepare it that way. So, and that's for major food safety, just because there are so many things that can be passed through food that we want to make sure that food is being safe for the public, because nobody wants to get sick at any event. Temperature control, so making sure that you're hitting all the temperatures that you need to. Foods do need to be cooked to an internal of 74 degrees Celsius. Use a probe thermometer. The gun ones are pretty cool that you can get at Canadian Tire, but that only takes your surface. You want to make sure everything has been thoroughly cooked. So inserting that probe thermometer into the thickest part of your product will ensure that it's cooked all the way through. Pretty basic, keep your hot food hot and cold food cold. Anything that's hot has to be above 60 degrees Celsius. Anything cold below 4 degrees Celsius. Do not thaw your foods on the counter if you're working from frozen products. Frost or defrost or thaw foods in the fridge, cold running water, or in the microwave, or cook from frozen. If you are going to be cooking something really big, like a pig roast, and then serving it out later, once the pig is done, cut it up into smaller portions, not just necessarily carving it right off if it's going to be cooled down for people to take home as a reheat later type of thing. So you want to take it off quickly, cool it down quickly, and package it quickly so that, you know, there's minimal chance for things to start growing. And when you're transporting things around, make sure that you're using coolers and ice packs for your cold foods, and insulated bags, and tightly wrapping your hot foods so that they're able to stay at a safe temperature. Hand washing, as you've all heard in the news, we're all supposed to be washing our hands about 800 times a day at this point. My knuckles are completely raw at this point, just from constantly hand washing. So from a food perspective, when should you wash your hands? Before you handle food, after raw meat, after coughing and sneezing, after using the bathroom. When your hands are dirty, wash your hands. When you're changing tasks, when you're changing gloves. One thing I like to talk to my operators about, my restaurant operators, is if you can't remember the last time you washed your hands, it's time to go wash them again. And that really does help remove any of those germs that can cause foodborne illness, and flushes them down the drain instead of accidentally serving it to your customers. We do have posters on how to hand wash if anybody wants them. So if you do have volunteers who are not used to working with food, this is really useful, because does give you a good visual of all the places you do need to hit between your fingers, around your thumbs, along your wrists, those types of things. And if anybody's looking for something fun, YouTube does have a lot of fun videos on what songs to use for hand washing. BG Staying Alive, the refrain's pretty good for timing for that one. So if you are doing food handling outside, you don't need to have a, dig up your lawn and put in a whole bunch of plumbing. There's a bunch of different options you can use for hand washing stations. And we see all kinds through different special events. You can use the blue camping jug, and you could use the fancy one on the far right. That's one that is rented from a porta potty company. We will work with you on what you're able to accomplish with the equipment that you have or that you have to borrow. The key things that are involved with a temporary hand washing station is that it has free flowing water. So it has a spigot that turns on and off, or pump or something like that. So it's not like you push the button, get your hands wet, and then when you take your fingers off the button, the water stops. It has to be a continuous flow of water. Water should be warm. And that's if it's in the summertime. If it's sitting out in the sun, there's a good chance it's going to stay warm on it that way. All of them have to have a catch basin, so your water's not just running onto the ground. It helps prevent splashback and things splashing up from the ground and contaminating things, as well as this is more so in the cities and towns. You can't just dump wastewater wherever. It does need to be disposed of properly in a sanitary drain when you're in the city. If you're out in the country on the farm, making sure that it's being disposed of properly and not in a high traffic area is really important. You'll see that they all have some form of liquid soap. So pump soap, it doesn't matter if it's the stuff you get at the dollar store, Bath and Body Works, as long as it has a pump and it's liquid and it's actually soap, that's what we're looking for. Hand sanitizers not approved for use in food facilities simply because it doesn't encourage good hand washing. A lot of people like to slap on the hand sanitizer and keep going, but if your hands are contaminated, if they have a lot of soil on them, it won't be as effective. So that's why we really want to make sure people are washing their hands properly, and having a single-use towel supply. So paper towels most common, and a garbage can to pop those into when they're done. Having a lid on your garbage can is also encouraged, so stuff isn't getting blown all over the fields. So if you're going to be doing sampling or picnic baskets, there's a couple of things that we'd recommend that you do. And the first option is to prepare all samples in an approved kitchen, package them and hand them out to visitors. If it's something that requires temperature controls, so if it needs to be refrigerated, it has to stay cold from the time that you prepare it to package, to storage, to handing out to your clients. The second option is you can prepare samples on site as long as you follow all of our requirements. So you have a hand washing station, extra utensils, sanitizer for your surfaces, protecting everything from contamination, those types of things. You could do that. We would probably prefer that you do everything in an approved kitchen, and that's a kitchen in Alberta that has a food handling permit. That's not your home kitchen. So the reason why we ask you to use an approved kitchen, because they have been inspected, there's standards in place that have been met for that building and for that water supply. So making sure, and it makes sure everything is safe from start to finish. So talk to your local inspector to make sure that all of your requirements are met. Depending on what you're doing, requirements might change slightly based on the risk of your product, which is why I'm not going through, you have to do A, B, and C, and you'll be approved. Everybody does have something a little bit different going on. And there's a huge variety of different food products that are served at these events that it would take forever to go through every scenario that could possibly come up. Another thing, and that's building on something else that somebody had, was a take home and cook type of situation as well, and this is something that could work. So if you want to do the take home and cook or picnic baskets, you can do up your baskets ahead of time with your non-perishable products, and then add foods that need temperature control just prior to eating or just prior to giving to your client. Don't forget about utensils. Single-use disposable will be the easiest, and that has to do with the picnic basket as well as food service in general if you're not going through a caterer. Going disposable, while it's not the best for the environment, it does make things a whole lot easier because then you don't have to corral all your cutlery at the end of the events. You don't have to go find a commercial dishwasher to wash everything through. And if you're going to be doing either of these options, you will need approval from a public health inspector. So can I make and sell pork sausages, set up a barbecue and sell them as ready to eat for open farm days? First question I'm going to ask you is the meat inspected, right? So is it your own product? Is this something that you're buying from somebody else? Where is the meat coming from? Has it been inspected? Where are the sausages made? So is this something that's, hey, I slaughtered my own pork and I processed it in my home kitchen with my own sausage maker and I want to sell it? That's not going to be allowed. If this is pork that has been, you know, slaughtered and inspected, sent to a butcher with your special recipe, and they made it for you and it's an inspected facility, sure, that sounds great. How are you going to set everything up? Where are you going to set everything up? Where's your barbecue going to be? Is it going to be protected from the public? Are you going to have a tent? How are you going to prevent kids from running up and accidentally touching the barbecue or something like that? How are you going to wash your hands? Where is everything going to be set up for this? So this is why each thing that you want to do is going to be very specific, very individualized, because we want to make sure that everything's being done safely. If you want to set up your own activations where they set up a roast and they buy the cold package from you and they cook it themselves, again, where's the meat coming from? How are you maintaining your temperature? How are you going to clean the utensils that are being used for cooking? Are you using just a spit or what I call the marshmallow roasters? How is this all going to work? What are you going to do for hand washing? So it's not that these aren't things you can't do. It's things that we just need to discuss with you to make sure that everything is being done as safe as possible. And can I have visitors meet the animals and then have something to eat? So definitely we want to encourage people to explore the farm in the fullest as much as you want them to explore. But making sure that there's hand washing happening, or at the very minimum hand sanitizer between handling animals and handling food, because there's a lot of diseases that cross very easily from animals to people. Salmonella, E. coli, and Campylobacter are very common in most farm animals. And we want to make sure people are not accidentally ingesting these things from handling an animal and going straight into eating. Animals also need to be kept far away from the cooking and food preparation area so they don't contaminate those areas. So what about home smoked sausages or jerky? Any and all meat products that are offered for sale or sample must be made in an approved facility. There's quite a few different butchers around the province who can work with you on making sure that foods are being approved safely, and I really encourage you to reach out to them to make those arrangements, because whenever there is sausages or jerky being made, inspectors do review those recipes and methods just to make sure that critical points are being met, so that there's critical temperatures that are met, critical times that are met, moisture amount in your products. We review all of these things to make sure that your product is safe. While your family may have had it for years without getting sick and it's an old family recipe and everything's okay with it at home, we don't want to have a risk to the public at any point with food products. We want to minimize our risks as much as possible. Because home smoked or home dried products are not acceptable for public consumption. So it all has to go through an approved facility. You really don't want to risk a foodborne illness linked back to your farm. If I have 6 people who have been identified as positive for salmonella and they all ate at your farm, that is going to be the first place that I look for potential source of contamination in an outbreak. And that's really something you don't want to have associated with your products, because if you're just getting started out, you don't want to have anything negative associated with your products. So making sure that you're staying on top of these food safety practices will increase a lot of confidence in your brand as well. And like I've said, smoked and dried products in commercial facilities are monitored for safety from start to finish, and operators are required to maintain clear records for us to review so that we can actually say, yes, this recipe is working, this process is working, and this product will be safe for the public. Some things I really want you to take away. Food safety is incredibly important to have at a successful event. Nobody wants to associate your products with getting sick. Anybody who's experienced foodborne illness, myself included, will spend days wondering what they ate, and the first new thing that you've tried is what you'll associate with it, and you'll never go back to it. Like, I still cannot eat pears because of an association I have with a particular product and becoming ill, even though rationally I know it could have been anything. It is stuck in my mind that if I eat pears, I'm going to get sick. So really, to prevent anything bad from happening from a food safety perspective, make sure your food handlers follow good hygiene. That means not working when you're sick, making sure employees are washing their hands, they're not sneezing in the products, they're not wiping their hands on dirty aprons, you know, nails are short, hair is tied back, those types of things. You want to make sure that your foods are kept at safe temperatures, from storage to cooking to serving. So if you are going to be doing a buffet style and people are going to take a while to move through it, you're going to need to have some type of temperature control to make sure that your hot products stay hot and your cold products stay cold. Working in August is going to be a challenge for keeping things cold, and we can talk through with you different methods that would work for your product and your setup on what the best way to keep that product cold will be. Cross-contamination must be avoided, right? So making sure you store things properly. You're not putting raw meats over lettuce. You're not putting cooked foods on something that had raw on before it. You have separate utensils for separate things. Items are in their own dishes with their own sets of tongs if people are going to be doing self-service. And meat and dairy products must be safe for consumption. They do need to be inspected and pasteurized as necessary. And if you have any iffy feelings about something that happened along the processing, if you're in doubt, throw it out, right? It's better not to take the risk of food safety on a product and risk your customers and clients from getting sick than to serve something that would cause them to become ill. And give us a call before any events. Like, we want you to be successful, but we also want you and your customers to be safe as well. And we're spread out throughout the province. We tend to be in community health service buildings, or like the public health office buildings is where we tend to be located. But if there's no community health services, we might also be located in the local hospital. As for example, White Court, they are located in the hospital because they don't have that community setting. Fort McMurray, they have their own office because there's not enough space in their community building for them. We are online, www.ahs.ca/EPH, and that takes you to our public website. That'll help you find what zone you're in, what office to contact, some of our other programming that we offer. And if you need to get in touch with me, I'm the inspector for the St. Paul region, so St. Paul County and a little bit of the MD of Bonnyville. Phone numbers just for the local clinic here, and then you can always send me an email as well. And if you want to reach out to me, even if you're not in my area, I'd be happy to connect you to your local inspector. I do know who's around me for different counties and different areas, so I can connect you that way. But if you are down in South and Central, I'll probably just send you to their general intake, and then that admin will connect you to the right inspector. So that is what I have.